Beyond the Wild.
Stand up just a little bit.
Okay.
Further?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Fancy.
Now. Okay. So, boys and girls, we've had. I know I was thinking the same thing.
Sure you were.
We've had 2 shows now, 2 different Beyond the Wild t-shirts. Game worn, folks. Get yours while they're hot. And by
nice.
hot, I mean it is hot.
Yeah.
And the AC is out. So this one, you get a little bit of extra.
These are all pre-worn, I'm assuming.
Game worn. Game worn. Podcast worn.
Oh, game worn. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Game worn.
This is
We'll
my
put it
only
in the-
red one, Ron. What will I do?
Get another red one and then wear it again. Mark will make a shadow box for you, and we'll put these in the shadow box signed. Get them
That
right
would
out
be
to
a
you.
surprising request. As much as I'm fond of all of our audience, all of the listeners, that would be one that, yeah, that would surprise me.
I would
Me
be
too.
shocked.
It would shock me.
But
No.
if it happens,
It happens.
it happens. So, fellas, what do we got going on tonight?
Something really cool.
This is
Aside from the subject matter, before that, when I sat down in this studio to record tonight, the windows are dark. The season is shifting. So it's 9 p.m. here, 7 p.m. Mountain, where my talented co-hosts are in each of their states. But I think this is the first time I've sat down and the windows have been dark at this time. So it's fall is on the horizon, which is exciting for a lot of our subject matter.
It is for sure. Went on a hike this weekend, and my sister-in-law was trying to argue with me that the leaves were already starting to change. And I know that she listens into this once in a while, which I appreciate. But I'm going to stand firm that the leaves have not started changing yet.
They actually have.
They haven't here, is my point. I know some have, but
The cottonwoods are starting to change a bit.
got you.
And I don't know why, because it's just been too warm, and that might be it. They might just be burning up.
They're just dying. It's so hot.
But there's a lot of yellow-leafed cottonwoods. Sorry, I had to make a quick adjustment. I found after just over 1 year of being in my house and still primarily living out of a storage unit, I found a piece of kit. Sorry, it's going to get noisy for a second. That I have been looking for and missing for the entire year. And
Your chaps?
for a bunch of guys that do podcasts for a living. No, I didn't lose those, Mark. For a bunch of guys that do podcasts for a living,
Oh,
my Zoom recorder has
resurfaced.
resurfaced.
Timely.
It is very timely. I went on a hardcore search for it because we're getting ready to head to Alaska this week. We're going to try to get some podcasts in the field. So yeah, that is a piece of equipment that I think probably we'll have to take advantage of. So, and I know Jason has one too, but it was bothering me that I couldn't find it.
Yeah, mine's considerably larger than that one. So, not considerably. It's just bigger, more bulky. We'll just leave that alone.
So tonight, after finding a new piece of gear, we are going to talk about a subject that probably pertains to more people than any other, just because of the frequency of appearance and the opportunities that they
They're
present.
ubiquitous.
Mark visited the thesaurus this afternoon.
Throwing out the college words.
Yes, got it in right away.
Just the
That
way you
urinal is coming later this podcast.
just the way you said it, I knew you had it listed on a whiteboard in front of you, right behind your computer. So yeah. So what are we talking about, Mark? Ubiquitous what?
Well, can I segue to some gear, or should I wait and do that
No,
after?
you have to announce what we're talking about first, and then you may.
Such good gear stuff that stick around for it. Well, we love charismatic megafauna to photograph, to film, to observe, to learn about. But honestly, there's so much on this planet that we are moved by, and bird life is ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Some populations are doing better than others, but it's amazing. You know, you go from tiny species of hummingbirds to ostriches, right? And the diversity of bird life, even in North America, the migrations, the seasonality, there's so much. So the guys and I thought about it and figured it'd be a fantastic episode to feature bird photography tips and some highlights about birds and stories from the field. But yeah, so today is about our feathered friends.
So this weekend, I was photographing a friend of mine's wedding. Kristen and Andy, congratulations. Anyway, everybody was sleeping in, and I can't really. As soon as the sun comes up, I'm up typically. And so I went, and the lodge where the ceremony was had a couple hummingbird feeders behind it. And so I just went and sat right behind the lodge and took some hummingbird images. And it occurred to me that the reason I like charismatic megafauna might just be that it's a heck of a lot easier than getting a good bird photo. Because hummingbirds are fast. I was watching some in 120K, and because they were fighting all the time. They're the Rufus, and they are just kind of nasty little things, fighting constantly. And so I was trying to get some video on my cell phone, and even at 120 or 120p, not 120K, that's quite a jump in jump from 8K right to 120. But slow motion is what I'm trying to say. And even in slow motion, hummingbirds are very quick. It almost makes them look normal in slow motion compared to the larger birds. But they're a difficult subject, and I think that's why when someone gets a good image, it is exciting, even though it might not excite me as much as it excites others. It it is a difficult subject and tough to get good clean shots because typically birds spend the majority of their time in nesting areas, and you have cluttered backgrounds at times, and it makes it difficult, to get that clean shot that we're all looking for. But these guys were willing subjects, and I will say it again: the 100-300 with the 2x teleconverter. Holy smokes! Even the little tiny hummingbird feathers got every detail on them. Crazy setup, which I'm excited about because with a lot of walking coming in the next week, it's nice to have a little lighter kit.
They're faster than we can watch, right? They're faster than our eyes. I mean, so it's really an ultimate photography challenge. It's more of learning where they'll be, right? And catching that hover or them landing. A quick pro tip for birds in the forest of any species, which we spend a lot of time because that's where, birds are everywhere, all different habitats.
Ubiquitous.
But they're ubiquitous. But those, well, ubiquitous means everywhere but rarely seen, though, doesn't it? So they're not rarely seen. So ubiquitous may be a bit of a misnomer.
Some species
Some
are ubiquitous.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Birds of paradise in the forest. That's another one. You have to Google birds of paradise mating dance. If you're not familiar with it, it will blow your mind what these little dudes do to attract a mate, and their color patterns, and just breathtaking biology, evolution, behavior. But in the forest where there are leaves, light is all part, one of the biggest elements of photography. Some would argue is the biggest element of photography. And to photograph any species of bird in a forest, overcast days are the best, right? Your shadows disappear, the harsh light. The only real exception to that is if you catch a bird in the forest in a ray of light and do a Jason Loftus. With his permission, of course, as Ron says, right? Is that
copyrighted, patented?
Yeah, can't do it without permission.
So that works, if you can darken the background with exposure of the subject and light, but otherwise overcast light for birds, and then their shadows disappear, the colors pop more, and so it can be done during daytime, not just early and late, because birds are active all the time. Before we dive in, I'd like to throw out one really amazing stat about one species of birds, and there are so many, but just to get the ball rolling about the biology, Arctic tern, right? The longest bird migration on planet Earth. Arctic tern spends the summer in the Arctic, nesting, surprisingly, right? Given the name, but then travels to Antarctica to spend the summer in Antarctica. I Googled this, so I'm reading this off of the result. Performs the longest bird migration on Earth, traveling pole to pole annually. This incredible journey distances up to 90,000 kilometers or 56,000 miles round trip. Think about that. These birds do that over the continents, all of our busyness. There they go. Over their lifetime, up to 30 years, they can live if they're lucky. They can migrate over 2 million kilometers. So that's a pretty amazing feat for anything on this planet. And these birds, I mean nothing but respect. Amazing. And how they know that, right? It's this whole homing thing, and how they can find their way right back. Springtime, the birds arrive, the rose-breasted grosbeaks arrive here and nest in the same oak tree they did last year, assuming they survive the winter and their migration.
And assuming the tree survived.
And the tree survived.
Maybe that doesn't happen as much in Ontario as it does in Wyoming, but we typically see very healthy trees that just get tipped over.
It's the wildfires in Canada. I mean, we were smoked in today. Everything closed up. A couple of days of really heavy wildfire smoke. So there are definitely areas, tons of habitat, unfortunately, being destroyed by fire right now, which obviously is home to a lot of bird life as well. But yeah,
okay.
The homing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Trivia. Since you looked yours up. And this is why put your phone down. This is why I got the goofy look on my face when you said longest migration, because I was thinking of one that's the longest migration without stopping.
Mm. Albatross.
No.
Oh, come on. They soar forever at sea. Okay, they're the longest
without
coming to
migration.
land.
That's just
longest without coming to land.
Mm-hmm. That was not the question, though, so take that point away.
The longest migration.
Jason, quit looking at your phone.
It's a shorebird.
Oh, I'm not looking.
It is a shorebird.
I'm not.
It's a shorebird.
I don't know the answer.
It's a greater yellow legs.
The bar-tailed godwit.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Thanks.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys are welcome.
Yeah.
All right,
Very
we got
cool.
that out of the way.
Want a tip for photographing shorebirds? Right? Get low on whether, safely
How do you
get
do
low.
that? How do you do that, Mark?
Well, most people kneel down. I mean, the trick is if you can get low enough, you can tip your screen. So you don't have to necessarily put your cheek on the sand. If you're down low and turn the screen on the back of articulating screen cameras, you can get right down low and get a great perspective, because with all subjects, birds included, eye level or below is preferred. often, not always, but often. So there's a tip. Ron has a tip for getting low. I don't know if it's courtesy of Chaz or not, for loons in a different
Oh,
situation.
it was. It was definitely courtesy of Chaz. Using the floaty pads or the throw cushions in your boat. Every boat has to have one legally in every state and probably every province. You have to have a throw cushion. So just rest it right on the surface of the water, rest your camera right on top of that, and you are at water level. Or you can just jump in a float tube and you're almost at water level, but you can stay pretty low there too.
Should you have camera insurance then, or just be really careful?
No, you should definitely have insurance because at some point you're definitely going to get wet.
But what a great angle to work from for loons or waterfowl. And I know Jason Loftus has mastered waterfowl photography.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No,
It's
you have. You got some
mastered.
amazing collections of waterfowl. What would be some tips for waterfowl?
Uh, for the most part, when waterfowl do something, it's a little bit faster, whether they're on the water and they're flapping their wings or whatever. So depending on what kind of shot you want, I would keep my shutter speed up. I'm talking 1/1600 to 1/2000. Another tip for shooting any bird in flight, really, and this is something that some people overlook, depending on how close they're getting to you, I would highly recommend shooting at f8 to try to make sure that you get the whole wingtip to wingtip in focus as well. That can be a challenge, especially if you're shooting at lower apertures. So, or higher apertures. I always get it backwards. But yes, f8 it would be what I would recommend. And sometimes the difficulty with that, and the cameras nowadays make that not as big a deal because they handle noise really well. But to have that combination with crappier weather, maybe it's snowing, maybe it's overcast, you've got to really crank your ISO up to keep your shutter speed that high and to keep your aperture where you want it. So sometimes you just kind of have to wing it and, pun intended.
Well done.
I do that a lot, and I don't even mean to. It just, yeah. Anyways,
This guy, he's
you just
prepared.
kind of have to go with it and sacrifice it and hope you get the best you can. And sometimes it's okay if you just have the bird's head and that portion of their body in focus, and the wings aren't necessarily in focus. Just depends on what you're looking for. And sometimes it's okay to go with a slower shutter and try for some of those shots where you get some wing blur and some motion in the wings and stuff as well. So anyways, but I think again, it comes back to, we've talked about it so many times, just understanding the types of shots that you're trying to capture so that you can, adjust your settings accordingly, obviously. But
So our sponsor Canon has a camera that's probably the best. I don't even want to say entry level, but probably the best kind of mid-market camera body, the R7. And it's good for birds because you don't get more reach. You just get a smaller sensor, which is just a portion of the full frame. So it looks like you're getting 1.6 times the amount of magnification out of your lens. But the R7, when you're trying those flight shots, it will distort the wings because it writes to the card very slowly. If you're in electronic shutter, you can shoot at 30 frames a second, but it doesn't do you any good if it's writing slow and your bird looks like the wings make an S because the top of the frame wings were up, the bottom of the frame wings were coming down as it writes to the card, and now all of a sudden you've got all that distortion in the wings and your bird just doesn't look natural. So, not pro tip necessarily, but you should also, like Jason said, f8 gives you a little bit more forgiveness, and the mechanical shutter will actually treat those images better as you shoot them. Now, that being said, it appears that the new R7 that's coming out, and this is from all the rumor sites, and the rumors are starting to ramp up a little bit, so that is going to be probably announced soon. Is usually the way that works, but it appears that the R7 II is not going to have a mechanical shutter. And again, that's just off the rumor sites. I don't know anybody at Canon that's told me a thing. Nobody at Pictureline, our gracious sponsor, has told me a thing. I'm strictly going off the rumor sites on that. But that's what it looks like. They're going to do away with the mechanical shutter, but they're going to get a faster write speed to your card, so it kind of counteracts that.
That's awesome. Mirrorless cameras have changed bird action photography, right? I mean, the autofocus capabilities of these newest generation cameras make success so much more probable for flight, and therefore should make it that much more fun for those of you that do bird photography, or those of you that are considering dabbling in it, like ducks dabble in a pond, right? Does that count?
Nice.
Does it? Okay.
Well done.
And but it's fun to try now, right? And so researching, the internet is, all the information's out there, right? Birds near you, migrations that happen. There's clubs, there's birders clubs, there's nature photography clubs to learn, but online, where to go, or even in one's backyard to start playing with, is for birds again. And that's one of the things that we've talked about numerous times on the show, is getting to know your gear for the subject that you're planning to photograph. So if a trip is coming up, practicing on the robins, even, or the doves, or if you're lucky, cardinals and scarlet tanagers in your backyard, help to prepare for trips. Mind you, if scarlet tanagers, we were lucky, we had 2 nesting pairs here this year. Really, first, no need to go anywhere else for just brilliant red birds. Unbelievable.
We don't have any brilliant red birds in Wyoming.
Not even cardinals?
The closest, no. I mean, there are occasionally cardinals in Wyoming. Certain parts of it, more to the southeast, but no, the majority of the state doesn't see them. Not that I'm whining. We have plenty of other stuff.
You have amazing birds that lek in Wyoming.
Yep, we've talked a lot about grouse, but they're some of my favorites. It's a great way to spend the early spring. Go out, freeze your tail off, and get some great images.
I was going to say, there's nothing better than just going out when it's colder than heck and laying on the ground on the snow and the mud at 2, 3 in the morning and just sitting there until the sun comes up, and then not taking a single photo because a hawk flew over or something. That's incredible. I'm hyping up grouse, everybody.
Yeah.
Sounds like a story.
Yeah.
Oh, it happens frequently.
I'm just kidding. It actually is really incredible. It's worth all of it when it all comes together, for sure.
The goofy part is, we've talked about it several times. Sharptails will come back. Rough grouse, they'll come back. Blue grouse or duskies, they will come back. Sage grouse typically don't. But if it's a raptor and not a photographer that bumped them, sometimes if you have to give them a lot more time. But sometimes they will make it back to the lek, especially if they see a female flying and hear her clucking, then the males are going to follow shortly behind. So don't necessarily give up, but don't have real high expectations if they do bust out.
I was going to back up just a minute because Mark made a comment that I definitely need to clarify, and I don't think anybody listening has any doubts about this, but I am not an expert at waterfowl. Far from it. And I'm just making a point here. I think even our buddy Gary Kramer would agree. I think waterfowl, or a lot of species, right, are very much like the moose scenario that we talked about last time, where it took you years, a career of time to gather images to tell a story. And I think that's very true with Gary and his waterfowl book that he wrote, the first one he wrote, right? And he's working on another one right now. But I'm excited to see how that comes together. But I think, to tell a story about an animal like that, especially a species, especially when it's waterfowl, and there's so many different species within waterfowl, it's a career's worth of images and time in the field. And, you can work real hard in one season just to get a shot or two of a scenario that you're looking for. And I've lived through that firsthand, trying to get, courtship flights, for example, and spent an entire spring at multiple times in the swamp to try to get the shot I was looking for, and did that over a couple of seasons to finally come away with a handful of shots that I thought were really worth anything. So I think it's just important to note that. I think, sometimes we just take for granted we can just go out and shoot some ducks and we've got it, but trying to tell a story again of an animal's lifespan and the different seasons and all the different aspects of it it's not something you do overnight. So
Conversely, though, like songbirds and prairie birds, you can get that story in one season because you just have the opportunity to continue to go back to that location. And if you find a nest, don't hesitate to set up a blind and just kind of create an opportunity for yourself to come back long term, and you do get that full cycle of sitting to hatching to fledging. So
it's a good point. And waterfowl are a lot that way too. Like if you can get them in the spring, you can get the courtship flights, and it doesn't take long for them to nest, and they're the ducklings and goslings to hatch, and they grow very quickly. Like by summertime, it's hard to tell if those were babies anymore, with some of them. So, but that's a good point, Ron. To tell the life cycle of a bird, like a goose, for example, or something, or a specific duck, but to tell a story of like waterfowl, for example, like Gary did, that was a career worth of images and shooting. But yeah, I think it's an endeavor that's fun. Birds have always been a passion of mine. I love birds in flight, the challenge of it. Their gear nowadays makes it even more. Your chances are better to be more successful with birds in flight because of the autofocus features, and it's incredible how you can throw your lens up, and if that bird's in there at all, and you hit the auto tracking, that it'll snap right to it almost every time, unless you have like a real busy background or something like that. But if it's just a bird flying, if you can keep that thing in frame, you're gonna probably have sharp images if your shutter speeds and that are good. So it's pretty incredible what we get away with now. But sorry, I'm done.
No, it's great. I'm just wondering with the mirrorless cameras and their autofocus menu systems, that there's animal eye, but there's also bird. Is there not? Do you
some
make
of them,
Not in
some
Canon.
of them?
not Canon.
Not in Canon. Okay, so I'm going to ask if you make a point of switching, but it's something to check your menu for if it is there. I mean, the animal eye from I don't change mine, and it works fine on the birds. Because I'm an opportunistic bird photographer. When the ptarmigans come by in Churchill, I just switch from the polar bears to them and get the sharp eyes.
Back
or
to telling stories,
photographing moose, and a bald eagle flies over in the Canadian Rockies, and I get that because it's the animal eye focus. I'm just going to roll so he doesn't get a chance to get in here.
Yeah, no, I mean everybody knows you're lying.
How cool are ptarmigan, right? Brown in summer, white in winter. They change their feathers.
We have no idea, except for ptarmigan on Svalbard. We know how they are. In fact,
Wherever ptarmigan exists,
got them
they
in
do
both
that.
phases. But yeah,
Listen, I've even seen ptarmigan in Rocky Mountain National Park,
yeah,
and I still haven't seen one in Churchill. So
yep.
We've had them on our Newfoundland tours, mid-molt at that time of year.
No, I don't doubt it. Just not in Churchill.
And in Alaska, or at elevation in the Rockies too. Mm-hmm. So I'm so happy you brought Gary up. Gary was, as most of you know, and if you don't, I'm just mentioning this, go back and listen to the episode where Gary Kramer was a featured guest and hear his amazing story of Waterfowl of the World. An incredible volume of book. I'm proud to have it here, and I assume he still has some inventory. Highly recommend this book if you have any interest in waterfowl. It's a page turner, and the images are spectacular, as well as the information that goes along with it. As a as a biologist. Gary's done a phenomenal job. But you can find him at Gary_Crame_photography on Instagram. And I'm really hoping we get him back on
He said
after
he said he would.
his
He's on
project.
on his new project. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something, and he's posting stories from the field right now in the extreme far north of Canada, and what he's working on. And so, following along on his Instagram is very entertaining right now with the extensive project that he's working on.
He's got in one of his locations. He had as good as good of odds of finding a polar bear as he did finding the goose species that he was looking for and the nesting species that he was looking for the flyway book. So he was way up there. But
What an adventure!
yeah, no,
Good for him, right?
Gary's yeah, great guy, great adventurer and conservationist. And yeah, that book is about a 10-pounder, so it's a page turner, but you're
Yes,
going to get a workout.
it's the biggest paperweight of a book in my collection, but it's
Yeah.
obviously infinitely more than a paperweight. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great resource, and yeah, I mean, it just goes to show somebody who went after his education and his passion and now is pursuing it. It's a great story, and one to motivate all of us really to follow the
Absolutely.
things we enjoy in this life.
It's never too late. Yep. So, quick question. Jason, you like the waterfowl. Mark supposedly photographs the ptarmigan when he's in Churchill. Um, what are your favorite species? I mean, Mark, you mentioned the scarlet tanager just because the color and the vibrance.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Some of it ties into experiences, and so my designating Jason as a master of waterfowl photography is not to indicate that his collection is infinite. The quality of the images he's now collecting on waterfowl are at an exceptional level. That's the statement that I was putting out there, and that I know I could learn from him tips on how to photograph these waterfowl in this case. It's just like anything Ron, your question, anything in my portfolio, it's really hard to pick one. And I know you often say, well, do it, pick one. But
Beat me
it's,
to it this time.
yeah, there's so many birds that I just love seeing. And in a way, I'm kind of happy I don't focus my portfolio on bird photography. I mean, I certainly do. Owls, winter owls have become something that are of growing interest. A great gray was one of my early on in my wildlife photography adventure. An experience for a couple of weeks with an amazing great gray really moved me and was incredible. And little segue, I'm hoping there are some exceptional places here in Ontario for owls in winter. So 2027 on the tour schedule, I'm planning to start making 3 weeks of owl tours available. Very limited number because my guests will have to fit in my SUV with me for this fun adventure. And it's kind of going to be owls and more, but I'll get into it later. But there's several species and high probabilities and a lot of fun to potentially be had. But a great gray owl, that early experience, and because of their tolerance, these tours will be more snowy owls and short-eared owls and saw-whet, perhaps. But great gray is a possibility. But some of these owls, even like a hawk owl, can be so tolerant of people. They're just not fearful, and not that I'm encouraging walking right up to one, but with our telephoto lenses can easily collect amazing images of these raptors, these owls, that aren't afraid of people like the great gray. So it was really moving because they are so photogenic. their feather patterns, their silent flight when they fly. Sometimes, it might be 50 yards away and they'll launch off a branch and soar past at 4 feet as they look for rodents and go to another tree just randomly, right? I mean, how special is that trust and that opportunity? And I didn't get those pictures on this experience because it wasn't even digital cameras then. Whereas now with mirrorless, that would be so fun. And I see pictures all over Instagram of photographers being very successful with owls in flight, and what a fun experience that would be. So many birds. Sandhill cranes in fall, when I'm in the far north, hearing them circle and talk about their migration route I just have to sit down and take it in and just admire these birds and the migration they do over the mountains and the way they communicate. It's one of the sounds of autumn to me, and that really is special. So, and they're starting to come this far east in Ontario in the past 6 or 7 years. So we do get a couple flocks that fly over if I happen to be home at that time, which was incredibly shocking the first time because I'm used to seeing them in Alaska or the Yukon. So that was tremendous. I'll stop there because birds. I'll jump back in later about Australia, but
So you bring up the cranes, and this was another one that we shared this trip. But Michael Forsberg is probably the foremost expert on sandhill cranes, whooping cranes on the planet. One of them certainly, and he's you can go right a few hours from my hometown, or not hometown, but where I live, and you could photograph 300,000 to 400,000 cranes every spring, early spring. And then you go to Alaska, and it's a whole different experience because the numbers are not even close, but you might get 50 to 100 sandhill cranes flying right in front of Denali. And it's a different experience, but it does pique my interest a little more than just photographing them sitting on a sandbar, even though you can get in closer proximity. But the country is so vast in Alaska, and just to see a species that you recognize at that kind of distance and have that iconic mountain in the background, I think it presents a little bit of an opportunity that you just can't pass up. Now, you were talking earlier about birds of paradise, and if you look it up, there's actually a series on, I don't know what network off the top of my head, but Tim Lehman he was the primary cameraman on the BBC, one of the BBC shoots that I did, the one on Swift Fox. And Tim is like, if you're seeing birds in paradise on camera, on screen, he probably filmed them. He's just one of those guys. There's a few guys that Tim does all the climbing work, so anything that's way up in the canopy is likely him. And he started that, with orangutans, working with his wife on research projects. But they are incredibly diverse, and their mating rituals, as much as I love grouse, the mating rituals of the birds of paradise is unparalleled. I mean, there's nothing that even compares to it. They're so unique and diverse and just repetitive. If you can find them, it's incredible to watch. But check that out. You'll see what I mean. Check out that series. Just look up Birds of Paradise and you'll find it, or find a link, and it's worth a watch.
And their dances are fun to try and mimic sometimes. Just saying. It's going to leave it at that.
I'm all over it.
Yeah, we got a competition. I love it. It's so fun. Yeah. In the right audience, at the right venue, of course. Or maybe no audience.
Preferably. Yeah.
I love the image you made of the sandhills and the observation. I mean, the migration and the numbers of them is mind blowing. But you're right. It's and finding them in the sky in Alaska when you hear them. I love the challenge of just, okay, where are they? You hear them, but it's such a vast view to pick them out. And then one of my favorite moose images to spin back on our last recording has the moose, has the mountains, and has a flock of sandhills above. To get that was special. And pre-mirrorless, there's some things I'd change about it, but it's a great memory to have. And yeah, seeing them in that landscape, they're just magical, because it's like they're navigating that Alaskan range, right? And obviously discussing how to do it with their chatter, which is such a cool call. So if
Wait,
you're
hold on though.
Okay.
You failed to answer, I think.
I did?
I think so. Did Which one? Maybe not.
I did.
I went on and gave you two answers.
Your favorite. See, you didn't pick one. You failed.
Yeah. No, I had so many.
Jason.
Yeah, for me, it's actually pretty easy to answer. Waterfowl in general is too broad of a question or answer. I agree. And I can narrow it down to one species in waterfowl for sure, and it's pintails. They're my favorite. And I don't have a very broad portfolio of pintails. It's on the list, and I've got plans to try to go get more. But I also really enjoy raptors. But if I was going to narrow it down to one, it would be eagles, which it's because I don't have a great portfolio of bald eagles, and it's something that I've got plans to go try to remedy. So.
Why pintails? What is it about the pintail that?
I just think they're just an incredible bird. I love the long tails of the males. I love their courtship flights. I love just the coloration and how sleek they look. And just, for lack of a better word, I think they're just a real handsome bird. And I think they're also, for me, where I live, they're not as easily found to photograph. They are around, they come through. But catching them in a situation where you can actually photograph them is not as easy here in Utah. So I know there's places to go where they are plentiful, and that's on the agenda. So, but yeah, I don't think it's nothing like so many of the waterfowl species are so incredible. Even a gadwall. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like a gadwall, a lot of people would look at a gadwall from a distance and say, yeah, it's kind of a grayish, brownish looking duck. Okay, cool. When you take a gadwall drake and you get to look at it up close, or even a hen, and you get to look at the feathers and the detail up close and the colors and the designs and all the detail that is there, they're just incredible. And all of the waterfowl species are like that, really. There's very few that are kind of bland, if you will. Most of them have just incredible markings and coloration and designs. And, you get into the wood ducks and the mandarins and stuff. It takes it to another level too, right? And there's lots of ducks I haven't photographed, so it makes it fun, to have some of those goals out there. So
turkey feathers have that iridescence too, right? They look like just a black bird. I mean, they have such great behavioral opportunities to photograph in the spring, from strutting to roosting to gobbling. But some close-ups of their feathers can be the colors, the sheen, it's amazing.
I mean, a face only a mother could love, but
right. Yeah, that's right. The waddle. Right. When the males get all excited. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. It's on their head. It's just this swelling on their head. For waterfowl, if you had to pick, Jason, for lighting, photography-wise, a sunny or a cloudy morning, do you prefer the weather coming in with snow, or do you want that blue sky? What day gets you most excited, or is there a preference?
There is a preference, and a lot of it can be where you're photographing too, for me. But I have a couple honey holes that I like to photograph, and it's pretty tough to be a good morning light situation, because you get those darker backgrounds and you still get some of the detail in the background. For me, a good waterfowl image, and this is just personal preference again, so please don't let anybody take this personal, but just, a bird, any bird in general, just a bird against a blue sky, or a bird on a wire, or a bird on a fence post, or a bird in a tree. There's nothing wrong with those. You need those images as part of your portfolio. But for me, the ultimate waterfowl shot is a duck of some kind in flight with enough detail in the background to see the environment that the duck is in, and really good light shining on them to highlight the colors and the detail. To me, that's the ultimate waterfowl shot. But so I would prefer the light, I think. But you know what? I say that, and then I was fortunate enough to get a cover with a duck in snow, a flying mallard in a snowstorm. And that was it was a challenging shot to get with higher ISOs, to freeze the wing action, make sure everything was in focus, all those things that we talked about. And in snow, it takes it to another level, right? Because you're fighting snowflakes and how many of them are in focus and not, like we've talked before, how many of the big white dots you get instead of an actual snowflake, and so on and so forth. So that was a fun challenge too. And it's a cool image, and it's unique for what I've photographed. So yeah, but the preference would be the sun, the light.
Makes sense for the colors and the feathers. But yeah, all of it would be fun to do, right? And that's part of a portfolio, weather and how it changes the behavior of the bird species, in this case waterfowl, and documenting that. So as far as eagles, Ron, of the three of us, has most experience with eagles.
Ron does not need to photograph another eagle ever.
What tips would you have when you think about photographing eagles that you would suggest for people, or a highlight story? Nice guy, giving you a choice.
The tips would be, eagles are a lot easier in cloudy light, because you've got a tough exposure, especially, bald eagles, let's say. You've got a tough exposure because you've got the white head and tail contrasted with a very dark body. So to maintain detail in both the head and the body, it's a little bit tougher to do. The highlight story, obviously, is when Mike and I were in Homer, and that was a trip that he set up. We chartered a boat to kind of take us out to. There weren't as many. There used to be a lady, they called her the Eagle Lady, in Homer, Alaska. And I know there's people out there that could tell you her name and photographed right beside her, but she used to feed the eagles. And it was legal to do that in town until she passed away. And as soon as she passed away, they made it against the law. So the eagles are spread out now. There's still a lot in the bay there, and you can find them everywhere. You can find them out on the spit. There's a big long point. You can photograph them, going after scraps. There's a fish factory out on the end of the spit, and the eagles come dive in and get the fish scraps. But the best place to go photograph them is across the bay, and you kind of get in these little inlets. And the reason is the water's a lot more calm, so there's a better chance of getting a cleaner image. And if you get lucky and they come in, try to get something, you can get a reflection as well as the bird in flight. The best scenario that we had, we went to this, it was a different bay, and I've talked about this before, but I think it was on the old podcast. This bay was unique because it had this big long point that came kind of in a northwesterly direction, and so it blocked the sun from everything going into the hillside as the sun started to go down. And we were there in March, so you still had sunrise, sunset conditions. But the birds in the middle of the bay were in full sunlight, so you could expose for the bird, and the backdrop just kind of fell off, and it was just beautiful conditions. In fact, I was I was shooting and I turned around and saw it at one point, and then Mike wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and he just said, "Are you seeing this?" And I look and see where he's shooting, and it was the same thing. We were both seeing the same thing, and it was probably the best lighting conditions, lighting setup that I've had, bar none, any species ever, because you could get the Loftus filter in flight. Basically, is how that kind of set up. So photographing those birds, I think that day, that one day, I had about 10,000 images, and you just couldn't stop shooting. It was crazy, and then you'd have good opportunities at birds on these cliffs, but it's like, light sucks. but,
Then
but
you're getting real
but
picky.
there's
Yeah.
birds all around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was probably the best lighting conditions, best single wildlife shoot that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's you got some incredible images from that shoot. I mean, some of the best eagle photos I've ever seen. They're just
Yeah, it
amazing.
was crazy, like crazy, crazy. And honestly, there were things that the eagles do in flight that I didn't even realize until I saw Mike's images after the first day that we were on the boat.
Mm,
Because if they try to swoop in and catch something and they miss, they come up and make this full banking turn, and it's almost imperceptible. I mean, even as large as they are, it's like the hummingbird. You don't see everything that goes on just because it's so fast. When they make that turn, it happens so fast that a lot of times you just miss it. And so I started watching after I saw his images, and he told me kind of when it was happening. Um, I started watching for birds that came in, and if there was one that came in to come after a fish and missed, I just immediately stayed locked on that bird, and I was trying to shoot vertical because they bank, and it's kind of in a vertical position, wings,
right.
one wing down, one wing straight up, and I started shooting them vertical, and I got a couple of these turns, and one of them was against that dark background with a little bit of snow behind it, so there's some white patches, but um, yeah, it was an incredible day.
Yeah, the images that came from that. I mean, it's just one of those where when you see the images, you just it's that they're images that you would absolutely love to have in your portfolio. Anybody would.
Yeah, it was a little bit of magic, and then we were in another bay, um, and it was kind of a where the sun was hitting the clouds, and it turns into that kind of hazy light,
Mm-hmm.
that warm kind of hazy light, and just the whole scene was incredible. Um, got a bird, kind of turning, and it wasn't really foggy, but it just had that appearance just based on the light itself, and
Right.
that's one of my favorite images as well. It's just a
Yeah.
little bit wider shot. The bird was quite a lot further away, but that's the thing. I mean, you could have birds right next to you. When I was on the beach, I actually belly crawled up to a bird that was it was perched on a piece of driftwood, and belly crawled up and just sat up real slow, and probably didn't need to belly crawl. There's people walking up and down that spit
Laughing
all
at you.
day long, probably laughing at me. But
Yeah.
I just did not want to disturb this bird because it was in a beautiful spot.
Right.
And
Right.
so when I got up, I kind of sat up, and this thing just rode it out, let me have my opportunity, and I backed out, and he's still sitting there.
Right. Right. Wasn't even
It's
phased by it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the opportunities are insane there. And then another one that was eating it was eating a sea otter. So there was sea otter carcasses, and they think there was some kind of parasitic activity.
Hmm.
And that's what was causing the death of these sea otters. And they were just scavenging, on these carcasses. And I was videoing, and he took two rib bones, swallowed two rib bones at the same time. And I'll have to remember to get this to JG, but he swallowed them, tried to swallow them. He had them both in his mouth, tried to swallow them, and then choked on them. And he tried to spit them back out, and he couldn't. And he had to use his talons. One talon basically grabbed him and pushed down and pulled them both out of his mouth before he took the next bite.
No kidding. Wow.
And I just happened to be filming this thing. And
It's crazy too, because I've heard this, and I don't know maybe if you saw any of this behavior or not, Ron, but I hear that every year bald eagles specifically will actually die from drowning because they will refuse to let go of a salmon that they've caught. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they grab on their talons, they're gonna either get it to the shore or fly away with it or drown, which is kind of incredible when you think about it.
The ones that get them the most, I think, are the flatfish. So you'll get a flounder or a halibut that's a little bit bigger and harder to manage. Mm. And they get in the water, and those fish can just kind of they just roll their body to swim. And they roll their body, and it keeps the eagle in the water. And the eagle will try to swim with its wings, basically. I think, Mark, didn't you guys see one of those at one time? Or was that just Mike and Missy that saw an eagle kind of swimming, trying to get a fish to shore? Do you remember that?
He does not remember that.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. We've had some technical issues. Mark has dropped off for a bit here, so we're going to just keep rolling. And hopefully he can get back on with us. But yeah, eagles are high on my list, Ron. I've got some trips planned. I've got some waterfowl trips planned. I'm kind of like Mark a little bit when it comes to birds in general. I'm more like an opportunist type of bird photographer. But I say that, but yet I've got trips planned for specific species because I do find it very enjoyable, and the challenge is very fun. And I think going back to your experience you had in the images you got, I would seriously, if you guys haven't looked at Ron's page and seen these eagles images we're talking about, I'm sure some of them will be on this show as well on the YouTube. But you guys really need to go take a look. These are the kind of images like from our bear fishing excursion a couple years ago where the light was just amazing, which is rare in Alaska. And have so many opportunities that the fishing bears with the red salmon is just super rare. And I would equate your guys' eagle experience to similar to that. You could shoot entire, you could shoot seasons and not have those variables come together to be able to get those specific types of images with that kind of light in Alaska. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think you should be, if you're not, I know you are, but you should, that didn't sound right. You should be proud to have those images for sure. And that's.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. And I think, the other thing that we failed to mention is that, when you just talked about conditions being perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest piece of the conditions being good for us because you're shooting moving subjects, fast moving subjects. So you have to have a pretty steady base underneath you. And so if you're in rough water, those shots probably aren't going to come together. So to get in those bays where they're kind of protected from the wind a little bit, and the water is still, that provides the opportunity that you need to have success with shots of those birds in flight.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. Like even shooting from a Zodiac in fairly calm waters can be a tricky situation, which we learned, right?
Absolutely.
If you think, I've got a pretty good portfolio of blurry images of animals from land, but I got a whole bunch from our Svalbard trip, just from the challenges of shooting from a Zodiac or a boat on water in general, to your point. It's a little trickier for sure. There's a lot to take in it. There's a lot of challenges there.
Yeah.
I love the eagle stuff and reliving your trip and what you experienced is amazing. We talked about earlier about photographing birds. There's so many species close to home for many of you. If you live in large urban areas, hopefully there's green spaces that facilitate, shoreline birds or songbirds during migration, or birds that nest in the vicinity through summer season, to give opportunities to practice. And I recognize through social media and seeing so many of you amazing avian photographers out there that it's your passion, and rightfully so, with the availability of subject matter. But if and when the time comes, you'll never get tired of what's in North America. But if you want to kind of blow your mind and experience something new and still be on this planet, it's surprising. So my love of Australia has grown over the trips going there. And it is, I liken it to, the people are wonderful, the climate, the seasonality, the society. It's all so wonderful and inviting. But there's these differences that are so refreshing because it's such a different place to be. You can start with driving on the other side of the road. And there are other countries around the world like that too. But the biggest difference, and one that's worth marveling over, is the wildlife, the marine, the abundance of marine life, and the land mammals, the marsupials. But what totally surprised me more than all of it is the bird life. And it's not hard to access. People think of Australia and they think, well, yes, there's so many things that are poisonous there and it's dangerous. But even in the city green spaces, there are so many colorful birds, and the sounds, it's otherworldly for those that haven't been there before. It's so amazing. The laughing kookaburras, to wake up and hear them. This is where JG will put the audio in from one morning in my daughter's backyard, of all places. But they're in the parks. We just walked through. The photo up on YouTube right now, or the video, was taken with my iPhone. Or, there's the galahs. There's so many parrots, parakeets, colorful birds. Something that on the west coast of Australia, I haven't seen. Oh no, sorry, I apologize. They're on the east coast. I haven't seen one yet. The cassowaries look like they're right out of Jurassic Park,
Be
right?
careful.
They look. Why do I need to be careful? They
They've
look
killed.
like
They've killed people.
but they look prehistoric. I don't
Oh,
have
for
firsthand
sure.
experience with them, but
Yeah.
you can Google it. What an amazing looking bird.
Oh yeah.
What's
Crazy.
what's this spin, Ron?
They.
How they have that big knot on their head, right?
Yeah. Very powerful legs, and they've actually killed human beings.
How so?
So
What's
yeah, they can be kind of cantankerous and aggressive, and just kicks and
mm,
spurs.
okay?
Yeah,
Telephoto lens, perhaps. I don't have first-hand experience, but
I've
they're one
seen
of those.
people photograph them up close, but
Right. I've
yeah,
seen them
then you
walk
read
by on
stories.
beaches on social media by people, right? It seemed that way, but it's they're just a really unique looking bird. And again, research it before doing it. But it's the rainbow lorikeets are very common in Australia. And again, on YouTube, you'll see some photos and videos taken with my iPhone. And, the iPhones, obviously, I'm in no hurry for them to replace our high end cameras, but they continue to evolve and impress, and clearly far more money and research and development in these handheld camera devices that sell to billions of people. It's growing, the technology expanding faster and faster. So I know I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max. When I'm taking a picture, I just have to hit on the top right. It says RAW, so I can take a raw image. It's exponentially bigger than the regular file, so it says RAW Max. So instead of just a regular, maybe 4 megabyte file, it's huge. It could be up to 70 megabytes, I think, some of them. So I'll do that if it's something I'm serious about photographing and don't have my mirrorless, my camera with me. But yeah, it's the bird life there is accessible and so very different. So for those of you out there that are passionate about bird photography, and I totally get it, and something I was alluding to, I think earlier in the podcast, and I'm not sure if I finished the thought. I am kind of happy I don't have to focus on a big portfolio of birds, and I have the joy of just watching them and seeing them and listening to them. There's that element of it, and I totally get all of your interest in these feathered beings on this planet for so many reasons. And so I can totally appreciate how exciting it is to build a portfolio, but to expand it, obviously the countries around the world, Australia being one, is a totally new experience to undertake and contemplate because it's accessible and is a wonderful place to visit.
Brazil was the same way.
Ah, sure.
The bird life was almost one of the highlights of the trip, surprisingly. I mean, jaguars, of course, were the reason we went, but the bird life there was incredible. Hundreds of species. I think we logged right about 130, I believe, is where we were at. And the greater Potu, still to this day, is probably one of the best camouflaged creatures on the planet that I've ever seen. And still to this day have no idea how the guide that first spotted that thing found it. Obviously it could have been just that he knew where to look or where it had been hanging out from other experiences, but they are perfectly camouflaged. They look like a limb and just sit there perfectly still. It's crazy. So I'll try to throw a shot of that up there. But yeah, the bird life in anywhere you go, you don't even have to be looking for wildlife. It's definitely worth pursuing to a degree. Mm-hmm. And I read a thing there today. There's a direct correlation between your age and when birding sneaks up on you. So I think this is a good indication. This podcast, this whole evening, is a good indication that we're probably old. Or at least approaching that line where interest in birding and age intersect.
It's the wisdom to appreciate the small things. All these, look at warblers, spring migration of warblers. I was canoeing in Algonquin Park a few years ago during spring migration, and they were flitting through the trees, this song, the colors of these little tiny birds that were on migration, just mesmerizing. It's so, yeah, I'll attribute it to wisdom. Not everything I do is necessarily wise, but fun. Yeah, birds are incredibly diverse across this planet, and it's worth. Yeah, Australia just blew me away with how different it was. And the Amazon, I can totally appreciate, would be very similar because of the
Costa Rica.
Right. Costa Rica, yeah, right. And
we didn't even talk about the Quetzal, for crying out loud.
Nope.
We've talked about it before, but holy smokes.
Yeah. Well, and we've had Russ the Birdman, we've had as a guest on the show, right? And we've all talked about how he opened our eyes to the incredible world of all these feathered friends of ours, and every trip I've gone on with him, my eyes have been opened significantly to the amount of bird life there is out there, and that we take a lot of it for granted. And it's kind of fun being with somebody like that can help point out the uniqueness and the beauty and the cool things about each of the different species you're seeing, And we were lucky to have him along on a couple of those trips. So, Yep. Looking forward to hopefully some more trips with him so I can learn more about birds too.
Yeah, having him and Myrna Pierman.
Oh, Myrna too, yeah.
on that trip to Svalbard was
We were spoiled.
it made it a different trip for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing human and naturalist. He's so fun to keep in touch with. His enthusiasm is contagious. So appreciate the introduction, guys, and it was so fun to do the podcast with Russ. So big admiration, Russ, and I hope I know he's got some tours or some trips going on. So I hope those are going well. So to finish, is there anything else you guys want to cover about birds? Because in the very beginning of this podcast, I talked about a gear piece that I quickly want to cover before we sign off for tonight.
Haven't gotten a sneak peek at this gear piece. I'm thinking it is going to have to be something that goes in the bag.
Yeah, agreed.
It'll fit so easily. So here's a teaser for what's coming. I was on a phone call with Chris Gibbs this week. We are mapping out that we're going to do a shared podcast with the nature photo guys. And that's coming up in the weeks ahead. And Chris brought my attention to this device. We talked about a variety of things. And collecting B-roll in the field is something that we all love doing, and it helps with storytelling for social media, for presentations, anything of that sort. And my iPhone, this device, I had no idea this existed. And you need, unfortunately, an iPhone 15 or 16. And I don't know off the top of my head whether which Androids are compatible with it, but I'm sure a little bit of research online would reveal whether or not the phone you have would work. And so that's the Nature Photo Guys podcast. You can find them on Instagram, and we'll be doing a collaboration together. That's going to be a lot of fun in the near future. So Chris, I mentioned that my phone was full. So my iPhone 15 Pro Max from all these fun trips and shooting 4K video has consumed the terabyte that's in it. So I've obviously downloaded, I've airdropped it to my MacBook Pro and stuff like that, older videos. But it's nice to have them on there for when I'm creating social media. I may want to go back and create a video or something like that. Here's an extension drive. So there may be a variety of brands. We have no sponsorship at this point in time with any of these brands, so there's no bias that way. But this is one that Chris mentioned to me, so I looked it up, and it's the Lexar, and it's the Lexar Go. It's called, and you can get a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte version, and it comes with this SSD USB-C that plugs directly into your phone. But then it plugs, if you just use this device, it plugs into the bottom, sticks off the end of your phone. Not a big deal. It's, as you can see here, it's quite small. So that's manageable. But to improve on that, if you buy it with this hub, the hub connects. So again, thanks to Chris for bringing this to my attention. The hub connects and has various ports for other USB-C microphone you can put on it. The DJI Mic 2, which I've ordered, guys. I'm for the stuff in the field. I'll save that for another podcast, talking about these other pieces of equipment. But that can go on as well, and it plugs into your port on the bottom of the phone. But it also comes with these 2 connectors. So there's a USB. Well, it's just male connectors that pop in to the bottom. That's what they call them. So it pops into the bottom of your phone and then pops in to the hub, and it mounts on the back. And suddenly I have 2 terabytes more data space on a fast SSD drive, which is 1,050 megabits per second to read, and to write 1,000 megabits per second. So fast. Now, what's also beneficial about this is it's kind of a game changer for the iPhone 15 and 16, because I was trying to figure out how to use this thing. It didn't seem to activate right away. But when you go into your camera and go to video, you can select ProRes. And it's video ProRes HDR on the top. And when you select that, it's a 422 color code, which is greater dynamic range, greater color depth than what the iPhone does on its own at 420. And when you shoot in ProRes HDR, the phone automatically writes to this SSD. And when I disconnect it from my phone, I plug it into my MacBook Pro, it's just like any other external hard drive, and I can copy it over and work with it. So it's a very user-friendly interface, these small SSDs. And again, there may be other companies that have them. I've heard from my co-hosts here when they're at PhotoX that they're available at Pictureline. So contact Colin Bigelow if you're interested.
That was it was a different device. That was one to just back your cards up in the field, and all you had to do was plug them in and it just automatically backed them up.
Well, they probably carry Lexar.
They do carry Lexar for sure.
Yeah, we're just saying we did not see that specifically, but I'm sure that they probably have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they do, Jason's going to pick one up for me tomorrow and then bring it to Alaska.
It's pretty cool. So, shout out to Chris Gibbs. You can find him on Instagram as well. A great videographer and nature photographer from Alberta. But it's a pretty cool add-on that takes up very little space, and it's 2 terabytes, and is going to, from all the information I've gathered so far, from my interpretation, create better quality video than just what the phone will do by itself.
Anytime you can shoot in RAW, for sure.
Yeah. And so vlogging, here's the thing. Vlogging, if you're looking at your screen because you want to see the position of where you are on your phone, if you're telling a story, it's not the best lens on your phone. So you can't see it from this side. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. There are ways to work around that. But for me, for any of the filming guests on tours, filming wildlife, a moose walks by, this is going to make it possible to have the best lenses on the phone capture ProRes onto this drive. So very exciting and small kit. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive like we're used to for pro camera equipment by any means. This, I think the 2 terabyte was 400 and some Canadian, and the 1 terabyte was, I think, a couple $100 less, maybe $250 or something. But I just ordered this. Well, anyway, Pictureline, yes, is what you should look to for that.
And one more time, what's it called, Mark?
The Lexar Professional Go portable SSD.
Yeah, it's the Go. Lexar Professional USB 3.2 Generation 2 Go portable SSD with hub. You can get the SSD more cheaply, just the one device, but if you want the hub to be able to, so you can connect, you can have this attached and with the hub charge your phone at the same time. Whereas if you only had the SSD, it's only stuck in the bottom, I believe, and then you have to take it off to charge. Not a big deal. But the hub gives you that versatility, and if you are a serious vlogger and want to use the DJI mic, then the microphone, you can plug that in as well, right to the device there.
That is pretty nifty.
A couple other B-roll devices I've ordered too. One of them just came out this week, and I'm excited to try it, and I'll report on a future episode with that.
Cool.
Too. So birds are fun, and birds are amazing. It's just the color, the size, the difference in behavior, the way they can fly. Enough said, right? They can fly and enjoy this planet, this beautiful planet from a perspective that we cannot. And some of them are just so vibrantly colorful. It's otherworldly. So it's fun to talk about them and to appreciate them and to hear your stories, gentlemen, from the various times in the field. And I know we could go on, as I'm sure and hope many of you have amazing stories and experiences with bird life. whether it be photographing or observing. And I'm hoping a few of the insights from today's podcast as far as photography tips that are applicable to birds will help. And gentlemen, I'm looking forward to, as always, our next podcast. And for those of you, I hope that you have, we hope that you have exciting trips coming up. And if you don't, that at least listening to our show helps you to feel like you're there as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.